The line humanity drew. St. Alethea Orbital Hospital had no weapons. That fact had always mattered. Suspended in silent orbit above the neutral world of Lysura, the hospital was a vast white ring of glass and alloy, its exterior marked with the universally recognized sigils of medical sanctuary. For 3 centuries it had treated the wounded, the sick, and the dying of every known species. Wars paused here. Feuds ended at its airlocks. Even pirates powered down their guns when passing within sensor range. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and recycled oxygen. Soft gravity hummed beneath the floors. Human and alien doctors moved through curved corridors with practiced urgency, saving lives without asking whose side they belonged to. Dr. Elena Mero was midway through a 12-hour trauma rotation when the alarm sounded. Not the medical alarms. Those were familiar, almost comforting. This was something else. A deep, resonant chime echoed through the station, followed by a message that froze every hand in motion. Attention, all personnel. This is not a drill. Unidentified military vessels have entered close orbit. Elena looked up from the operating table. The patient beneath her, a young alien child with fractured plating and failing lungs, twitched weakly under sedation. "Continue ventilation," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "Don't stop." Through the transparent wall of the surgical bay, she saw stars vanish as massive shadows slid into view. Warships, angular, crowned with gold-lit hull markings unmistakable to anyone who followed galactic politics. Phyrexian Royal Legion. Someone whispered they wouldn't. They did. The first boarding craft docked less than 4 minutes later. No warning shots, no negotiation, just the hiss of pressure equalization and the heavy, rhythmic march of armored boots through a place that had never known them. King Valkyr IX's soldiers moved with ritual precision. Crimson and black armor, crested helms, energy rifles held at rest but ready. They sealed corridors, posted guards outside intensive care wings, and began erecting portable command nodes in open atriums where families had waited only hours before. A Phyrexian officer's voice boomed through the hospital's internal network. "This facility is now under the protection and authority of the Phyrexian crown. Remain calm. Continue your duties. Any interference will be treated as sedition." Protection. Elena finished closing the incision with hands steadier than she felt. When the patient was stable, she removed her gloves and stepped into the corridor. A legionnaire stood 10 meters away, rifle angled casually across his chest. Behind him, patients were being redirected, gurneys turned away from windows, wards sealed off without explanation. "This is a medical sanctuary," Elena said, keeping her voice level. "You have no jurisdiction here." The soldier's visor did not move. "We have orders." "From who?" "From a king." That was the moment she understood. King Valkyr had not come for patience. He had come for position. St. Alethea's orbit controlled the region's fastest trade corridor, and its communication relays were some of the most advanced civilian systems in known space. A hospital made the perfect shield. No fleet would fire on it. No power would dare, especially not humanity. Within the hour, Dominion engineers rerouted power from non-critical medical systems to reinforce external shields. Surgical schedules were compressed. Evacuation requests were denied. When hospital administrators protested, they were escorted to secured quarters for their own safety. Elena activated her personal recorder. She documented everything. The armed guards and pediatric wards, the Dominion banner unfurled in the central atrium, the way patients cried when soldiers shouted at them to move faster. When the first evacuation shuttle requested clearance, she was in the observation gallery. "This is civilian transport Alethea 7, the pilot said over open comms. "We are carrying non-ambulatory patients, requesting immediate departure." There was a pause. Too long. Then a Phyrexian voice replied, bored and absolute. "Request denied." The shuttle's engines flared anyway. Elena watched, heart pounding, as the small craft began to pull away from the docking ring. For half a second, she felt relief. Then a Dominion frigate fired. The energy lance cut through the shuttle's hull in silence. There was no explosion, just sudden decompression, bodies tumbling into vacuum, and a broken ship drifting apart like discarded organs. Someone screamed. Elena didn't realize it was her until her throat burned. The hospital fell deathly quiet. Within hours, the footage was everywhere. Smuggled data bursts, encrypted medical channels, personal recordings sent to Earth with shaking hands. Human diplomats responded within a day. Their message was restrained, formal, and unmistakably human. Withdraw. This facility is protected under interstellar law. Release all civilians immediately. King Valkyr answered personally. Broadcast from a throne of black crystal and gold. He smiled as if indulging children. Human laws do not bind kings, he said. Your peace has made you forget your place. On Earth, 2,000 years of restraint cracked. Deep beneath oceans and mountains, systems that had not powered on since history became legend awakened. Fleets whose names were spoken only in theory received activation codes. In a sealed chamber, the unified human assembly reviewed a single image on a massive display. St. Alethea Orbital Hospital, a place with no weapons, a place humanity had sworn to protect. And now, the line had been crossed. The silence before the storm. Earth did not erupt in a chaos. That alone would have frightened the galaxy, had they been paying attention. There were no public speeches, no emergency broadcasts, no threats hurled across open channels. Markets did not crash. Cities did not riot. To the casual observer, humanity absorbed the news of St. Alethea in silence. But silence on Earth had always meant preparation. Deep beneath Geneva, in a chamber sealed long before any living delegate had been born, the unified human assembly convened under Protocol Black Meridian. The room was circular, austere, and deliberately unadorned. No banners, no flags, only a single holographic projection hovering at the center. St. Alethea Orbital Hospital. The image rotated slowly, its white hull now scarred by the black geometry of Phyrexian docking clamps. No one spoke at first. Admiral Ruth Calder broke the silence. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. Confirmed casualties. An intelligence officer swallowed. Evacuation shuttle Alethea 7. 732 confirmed dead. Medical staff and patients. No gasps. No curses. Just the soft sound of chairs shifting as the weight of the number settled. General Ayan Qureshi leaned forward, hands clasped. Was a hospital armed? No, sir. Did it resist? No, sir. The general nodded once, as if confirming something he had already known. For 2,000 years, humanity had been defined by a single reputation, the restrained species. They possessed fleets capable of dismantling empires, weapons that bent physics into compliance, but they used none of it. They mediated wars, enforced treaties, built hospitals where others built fortresses. The galaxy called them moral. Humanity called it discipline. The hologram shifted. New data overlaid the hospital. Dominion troop movements, command nodes installed in surgical atriums, power rerouted from life support redundancies to shield reinforcement. Then another clip appeared. A nurse, human, unarmed, kneeling. King Valkyr's voice echoed through the chamber as the execution played in brutal clarity. Several delegates looked away. Chairwoman Eleni Markov did not. When the clip ended, she stood. Invoke protocol, Ashen Wake. The chamber stilled. That protocol had not been spoken aloud in centuries. Some believe it a myth, a ceremonial clause written in the aftermath of humanity's last great war, never intended to be used. An elder delegate cleared his throat. Ashen Wake authorizes. War, Markov finished. Under specific conditions. She gestured to the projection. A protected medical facility. Civilian casualties. Willful violation. Broadcast confirmation. Every requirement met. The vote was immediate. Unanimous. Across human space, dormant systems awakened. In orbit above Mars, the shipyards of Phobos unlocked vaults sealed with codes older than the colonies themselves. Holes slid into place around skeleton crews who had trained their entire lives for wars they never expected to fight. On Luna, officers received sealed orders marked with a single phrase: medical retaliation doctrine. Human fleets did not mobilize in grand armadas. They dispersed, small, precise formations slipping into hyperspace lanes that Dominion sensors had long considered safe. Within intelligence divisions, analysts worked not on battle plans, but on hospital schematics. St. Aletheus layout was reconstructed down to the centimeter. Patient vitals were cross-referenced. Surgical schedules memorized. A war was coming, but it would not begin with fire. Before any shot was fired, humanity sent one message. Not a threat, a warning. It reached King Valkyr on his flagship as he presided over a celebratory banquet, attended by nobles and generals who believed the hospital occupation a masterstroke. The message was brief: withdraw from St. Alethea Orbital Hospital. Release all civilians and medical staff. You have 12 standard hours. Valkyr laughed. Humans, he said, raising a goblet, still pretending their words matter. He ordered the message broadcast across Dominion space as proof of his dominance. What followed was not dominance. It was arrogance. 6 hours into the countdown, Dominion forces executed a public compliance demonstration. A human nurse was dragged into the hospital's central atrium. Cameras were positioned. The broadcast went live. Dr. Elena Marrow saw it from a maintenance corridor, her recorder shaking in her grip. The nurse did not beg. When the shot rang out, Elena closed her eyes, but not before the image was transmitted through a dozen hidden channels, straight to Earth. The countdown continued. At 0 hour, Chairwoman Markov stood once more. All diplomatic channels are now closed, she said. Authorize Phase 1. On command, human fleets executed their first maneuver. Not an attack, a blackout. Across 3 Dominion sectors, military communications died mid-transmission. Navigation beacons went dark. Supply convoys lost coordinates and drifted helplessly in deep space. King Valkyr demanded reports. None came. In the void between stars, humanity finally spoke, not in words, but in action. And the galaxy would soon learn what 2,000 years of restraint had been holding back. The war, humanity never forgot. The first thing the Dominion lost was certainty. Across 3 sectors, Phyrexian commanders stared at dead tactical displays and unresponsive comm panels. Fleets that had moved with imperial confidence only hours earlier now drifted blind, their navigation lattices severed with impossible precision. No jamming signatures. No detectable attacks. The systems simply stopped. King Valkyr raged aboard his flagship, demanding explanations that never arrived. What he did not understand, what none of them did, was that humanity had not declared war to conquer. They had declared war to extract. Human doctrine did not begin with bombardment. It began with isolation. Supply depots winked out one by one as quantum anchors collapsed. Hyperlane gates recalibrated themselves just enough to misalign Dominion ships by fractions that made jumps lethal. Entire legions found themselves stranded, weapons intact, but useless, cut off from fuel, food, and command. And through it all, civilian networks remained untouched. Hospitals, habitats, trade stations, untouched. Observers across the galaxy began to whisper. Then St. Alethea happened. 7 minutes. That was how long the human operation took from breach to secure. No thunderous assault. No breaching torpedoes. Instead, human insertion teams phased through the hospital's exterior shields using frequency keys stolen, not hacked, from Dominion command nodes elsewhere. The shields never registered a hostile event. Inside, human soldiers moved like surgeons. Their armor was matte white and slate, marked with crimson bands and a symbol that made Dominion troops hesitate in confusion. A circle enclosing a cross, overlaid with a sword. Medical protection enforcement. Every soldier carried a compact rifle, but many never fired them. They advanced with stun fields, kinetic grapplers, and shock batons calibrated to Phyrexian physiology. When Dominion troops retreated into patient wards, Using gurneys and incubators as cover, the humans did not fire. They closed the distance. Hand to hand, elbows cracked armor joints. Magnetic grips tore rifles free. Human soldiers took hits they could have avoided, choosing bruises and broken bones over a single stray round near a hospital bed. Dr. Elena Marrow watched from the doorway of an intensive care wing as two human Marines shielded a row of patients with their own bodies while a third disarmed a legionnaire twice their mass. The Threxian fell. The Marine offered a hand. "Stay down," he said calmly. "This place isn't yours." Within minutes, Dominion command nodes were offline, their operators bound and sedated. Power was rerouted back to life support systems. Ward doors unlocked. Patients were moved, not rushed, according to triage priority lists human medics had memorized before the first jump. Elena felt her knees weaken as a human medical officer approached her. "Dr. Marrow," the officer said, voice gentle, "we're here to evacuate you. I'm not leaving until my patients do." The officer nodded. "We expected that." Extraction proceeded in layers. Non-ambulatory patients first. Neonatal units next. Every movement tracked, every heartbeat monitored. Dominion forces attempted a counterattack from the docking ring. They never made it past the airlock. Human Marines sealed it, vented the chamber, and then repressurized it, retrieving the unconscious Threxians and adding them to the prisoner manifest. Alive. Across Dominion space, panic set in. Human fleets did not announce themselves. They appeared inside, firing envelopes, disabled weapons, and vanished. Shipyards found their fabrication systems inert. War academies lost their databases. The Dominion's mighty military remained largely intact, but blind, deaf, and paralyzed. Then King Valkyr attempted to flee. His flagship's engines failed mid-jump, dropping the vessel into real space surrounded by darkness and human ships. Not dozens. 3. They did not fire. A boarding shuttle crossed the distance, docking with surgical precision. Human Marines cut through the hull and advanced straight for the throne chamber, guided by biometric signatures pulled from Dominion medical records. Valkyr stood defiant as they entered, flanked by guards who hesitated when they saw the symbols on human armor. "You dare board a king's ship?" Valkyr sneered. A human commander stepped forward. Her helmet came off. "We dare arrest a criminal," she replied. Valkyr reached for a hidden weapon. A stun pulse dropped him instantly. He woke restrained, his wrists bound in gravitic cuffs that monitored vital signs and administered sedatives if stress spiked too high. "Why am I alive?" he hissed. The commander looked at him with something like contempt and something worse. "Because you're going to stand trial," she said, "and because killing you would be mercy." Back at St. Alethea, the last patient was evacuated. Human engineers began repairs even as Dominion banners were torn down. Elena stood in the restored atrium, staring at the clean floors where blood had dried hours earlier. The war was not over, but the galaxy already understood the truth. Humanity had not forgotten how to wage war. They had simply been waiting for a reason worthy of it. Judgment after peace. The war did not end with victory parades. It ended with paperwork. That, more than anything else, unsettled the galaxy. 2 standard years after St. Alethea was liberated, the Grand Tribunal of Sentient Accord convened in a chamber that had once been purely ceremonial. It now bore the marks of purpose, expanded seating, reinforced security fields, and translation arrays capable of carrying the weight of history. At the center of the chamber stood King Valkyr IX. He no longer wore a crown. Gravitic restraints bound his limbs, calibrated to sustain his life while preventing even the smallest act of defiance. His armor had been replaced with simple gray garments marked only with an identifier code. No royal sigils, no titles, only a defendant. Humanity did not sit in judgment. That was deliberate. Instead, the tribunal was composed of delegates from dozens of species, many of whom owed their lives or the lives of their kin to treatment received in human hospitals over the centuries. Physicians sat beside admirals, civilians beside diplomats. For the first time, The galaxy judged one of its own kings without fear. The prosecution did not open with rhetoric. They opened with medical logs. A holographic display ballooned above the chamber, showing St. Aletheus ward maps, each room overlaid with patient data. Names, ages, conditions, heart rates spiking as Dominion troops entered. Flatlines following the evacuation shuttle's destruction. Dr. Elena Marrow took the stand. She did not speak of heroism. She spoke of protocols violated, of life support systems diverted, of surgical procedures interrupted by armed men shouting orders. Her recorder played. The execution in the atrium echoed through the chamber. Several delegates turned away. Others wept openly. Vailker stared straight ahead. When asked to respond, he laughed, thin, brittle. "I am a king," he said. "I acted for the security of my realm." A delegate from the Kesh collective rose. "You occupied a hospital." Another stood. "You executed medical staff." Another. "You used patients as shields." The accusations piled up, not shouted, but spoken with quiet certainty. Human legal advisors observed from side gallery, silent unless called upon. They did not argue. They clarified definitions when asked what constituted a medical sanctuary, what laws applied, what precedents existed. And when the tribunal realized the existing legal framework was insufficient, humanity offered something unexpected. A new charge: crimes against the living. Not genocide, not war crimes. A category born from the understanding that some acts violated not borders or species, but the shared agreement that life itself had meaning. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty. The sentence discussion lasted longer. Some demanded execution. Others called for life imprisonment in isolation. The chamber grew heated until a human representative was finally invited to speak. Chairwoman Eleni Markov stood, hands clasped. "Humanity will not demand his death," she said. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Death," Markov continued, "is an ending. And endings are merciful." She gestured toward Vailker. He denied mercy to the helpless. He weaponized a place built to heal. His punishment should reflect that truth. The tribunal deliberated once more. When a final sentence was read, Vailker's composure finally shattered. He was to spend the remainder of his natural life confined within a human medical facility. His health would be preserved, his pain treated, his mind kept clear. He would be allowed to watch the world he ruled move on without him. He would never be allowed to die. Vailker screamed as the implications sank in. Humanity did not respond. Years later, St. Aletheia Orbital Hospital reopened. Its hull gleamed once more, reinforced but unchanged in purpose. The Dominion scars were gone, replaced by new wings dedicated to emergency response and interspecies trauma care. At the main airlock, a plaque had been installed. It read, "Peace endured for 2,000 years. It ended here, so it could live everywhere." Dr. Elena Marrow walked past it every day. The galaxy changed after that. Wars still happened, but hospitals were no longer touched. Even pirates altered course when medical transponders activated. Kings hesitated. Generals reconsidered. They had learned the lesson humanity never needed to teach twice. Peace was humanity's choice. And like all choices, it could be revoked. Not in anger, not in conquest, but in defense of the living. And